Dr. Jaishankar, welcome to the ET Awards and thank you for making it. So let me start by just talking about the churn which is happening in the world. The world has been in churn, a lot of churn. You just look at the last decade, the US-China dynamic, that has gone a reset. The Russia-Ukraine war, the situation in the West Asia region, and of course the pandemic and the global economy. In all of this, we've also seen change happen in India. We've seen a full majority government, which is now into completing its second term, and you've been part of that entire journey. In fact, you've also traversed a long journey in your career before that. So, in short, let us hear it from you. What has changed in India and what is changing between India and the world?
Uh, Pranab, first of all, let me say what a great pleasure it is to be here. I had the good fortune of coming in early and listening to the last panel. And in a way, what the last panel did was it captured a lot of changes which are taking place. So here's the bit I want to add, which is how does the world see those changes? So let's take the four aspects of those changes. First of all, the politics. I think the world sees a vast improvement in governance. It sees not just a full majority government, it actually sees a prime minister whose popularity rating is the envy of all other politicians in the world. It sees something very rare in this century, the possibility, the probability of three successive terms in a democratic polity. Now, what does that mean? That means both progress and it means stability. And therefore, you come to the second aspect of it, the economics of it. Again, they see the enormous infrastructure change, driven by Gati Shakti. They see the easier to do business, the lesser bureaucratic load on the economy. I'm not sure the world is entirely conversant with all the details, but they can sense, these 250 million people who come out of poverty, the layer above them, which is getting into a neo middle class. So they can sense that, and they know that there is this consumption and production increase out there. If I were to move to technology again, there is a very big difference in the way they see us over the last 10 years. An appreciation that actually India is beginning to take manufacturing seriously at last. And without manufacturing, actually nobody is going to take you very seriously on technology. And finally, on the cultural side, there is an appreciation that, that today we are behaving differently. There is a certain self-assurance, there is a way we carry ourselves, we speak our own metaphors language, we think through our own solutions. I mean, to me, more than anything else, that change has registered with the world. So what does it mean to round it off? I think what it means for the world is we will be more valued and appreciated as a collaborator or a partner. It could be on, big geopolitical issues, how to create favorable balances. It could be on big issues like climate change. It could be on technology issues. Economically, I think an enormous interest in how to bring India into new supply chains. In the digital side, how does India get more deeply into a more trusted, transparent digital world? So I would say, no question, much greater appetite for India in markets abroad, in both economic markets, but political markets as well.
I would like to just touch upon the point you made about cultural adjustments. I mean, the cultural particularities of the Indian democracy per se. How do you think the West has adjusted to that, given that it also has tied the economic imagination of India somewhat in what it looks at Indian democracy? But now, when you look at the economy story, they have to accept or adjust with the Indian cultural particularities. What I'm referring to, even if it is the Citizenship Act or the fact that they also had a Lautenberg amendment, how much of that gap is being closed as the economic conversation catches up?
Uh, well, look, when any country, any society rises or changes, uh, there will be an adjustment process. I mean, it's not fair to expect automatic understanding. If the rise is sharp, if the changes are very significant, then the gaps will be more. So there will be issues. There are issues. I mean, I don't think anybody would deny it. I mean, you gave an example, which is CAA. You know, you can see in some parts of the world that there's an automatic buy-in into certain narratives, particularly vote bank type narratives. Now, nobody really figures in that this is an consequence of the partition. That you have neighbors where the minorities, the numbers have gone down dramatically, and those people have to go somewhere. In many cases, the nature of the faiths are such that the only place they can go to is India. Now, these are all countries who, by the way, do the same thing themselves. I mean, many of them have used religion or language or other attributes as a faster pathway to citizenship or immigration in their own case. But yet they would buy into it. So there will be issues. I think what is important is how do we, how do we communicate better? How do we set out our narratives when we encounter something which is difficult or different? How do we have the confidence to counter that? The rise of any country is always accompanied by a certain argumentation and a certain marketing, if you would. And I think that's exactly what is happening to us.
I will also touch upon the other point which you made on the economic side about manufacturing. I mean, we've heard this from the government and we've heard this from you before also, that India needs to catch up on manufacturing and we want to sort of go back and get back those years which we missed. But when you look at, and this is an audience full of business people over here, manufacturing leads us to the question of supply chains. The moment we go into supply chains, we enter the big dragon question, the China question. And our geopolitical competitions, some may call it rivalry, has led to a situation where businesses have had to adjust. But what do you do when you take off one layer, two layers, the third layer, there is still China? How do you expect Indian business to craft their strategy on China as India also navigates as a government the geopolitical territory which has been edgy with China?
Well, I think, there are many aspects to that question. The first aspect is this. In the earlier era, if I can call it that, let us say pre-2015-16, not just, I'm picking that not because of what is the change here, but also what happened in the US. We thought of trade essentially as a function of efficiency. Business was you go where it is most efficient to go. Today, if you fast forward to 2024, in many domains, you would put a certain security layer. There are many businesses where it might be more efficient to go there, but you don't want to go there because there are many other implications, including security implications of going there. Another factor which you would put in is actually the socio-economic consequences, the hollowing out of industry in those who were advanced economies, and the dampening of innovation in those who were budding industrial economies. I would put ourselves in that category. So today, people would look rightly at what is the obligation to our own society as well. So there would be a social, employment, security. These are all additional factors in how choices would be made. Uh, I mean, if you were asking me what does business do, it doesn't depends on which part, what do you do, which domain you are. There would be some certain areas where I think the sensitivity, the transparency, the trust, anything digital today, telecom today, I mean, these are areas where actually trust will be a very, very crucial factor. And I think people had better wake up to it, because if they make business choices which would lead them to situations where they might find themselves in difficulties because the rest of the system will not be facilitating the execution of that choice. Now, for a lot of other stuff, here's the problem. We can keep complaining that there's one country which accounts for 30% of manufacturing, so many supply chains go there. But at some stage, we have to do something more than complain, because if we don't build up our own supply chains, and I understand it's not that easy, and it cannot be every major company's responsibility to foster a domestic supply chain, but I would say it is also not something which they should be insensitive to. Where they can actually support domestic supply chain, they should.
What do you want them to do more proactively in specific terms?
Look, it's not, I think I'm not parking it on business. I think we meaning the country, we meaning the government, I mean business, I mean, in a sense, a certain collective. We have to create a climate where more industry, more manufacturing, more innovation flourishes in our country. I mean, we have debates in this country where actually people say, we are not capable of manufacturing. We shouldn't be manufacturing. I mean, I'm baffled how anybody can say such things. So, look, we may have missed a certain period of manufacturing because of the policies of that era. But if we have an opportunity today to reboard that bus, which is why there were remarks about PLI in the earlier panel, that if we can reboard that bus, if we can enter the new industries which are coming up today. If you are looking today at, say, semiconductors, you are looking at renewables, you're looking at green, clean tech, you're looking at space, you're looking at drones. I think we should make that push. I mean, we cannot be a major power without technology, and you cannot have technology without manufacturing. I think it's a very simple correlation out there we need to understand.
So, when people say that it is India's moment now, do you see because of the geopolitical situation, the way relationships are redefining themselves among countries? In the past, we always talked about building stakes in our relationships with other countries. Do you see the India stake rising in the foreign policies, the foreign and economic policies of other countries? Is that moment something you are experiencing in your daily interactions and conversations? And how do you think that can be best leveraged moving forward?
I can see it, but not yet in the very definitive way in which you are asking me. I can see the growing interest. I think people see different parts of the puzzle. There is, one experience I've had in the last year, 2 years, a much greater interest, for example, in human resource, in skills and talent. So you actually have countries which historically are very resistant to movement of people now showing much greater interest in mobility. That's one example. I would say definitely in global business, a much greater interest today in seeing at least some of the supply chains go through India. So finding partners. Clearly, in many cases, interest in bringing aspects of business into India. I mean, that where do you actually set up shop in India, in what manner, and leverage that. I can see that happening, but it will take effort. I think we need to push that more strongly, and in a way, the world will also watch how our own economy is doing. That also drives this aspect. So absolutely, I mean, I would say in pretty much every foreign ministry and every foreign trade or economic, you can say, ministry of the world, uh, there would today be an interest in India and a desire to engage India. And you can just see it in the traffic of people coming. I mean, there is not probably a day that passes where there isn't somebody from some part of the world out here who is actually trying to make friends, influence people, and do business.
Use this moment to welcome the Finance Minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, to the gathering. Welcome, ma'am. Good, you talked about making friends. Going through your book, you have this very interesting narration and comparison with the Ramayana and about Ram and Lakshman, and you've been asked a lot of questions where you say that that Ram should find Lakshmans and India should look for Lakshmans. As we move ahead, you discuss about Lakshmana's counseling to Ram and how without Lakshman's support, Ram couldn't have reached or fulfilled the goals he achieved. But in a world where realists tell us there are no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interests, how do you find Lakshmans or cultivate them?
Well, in literally speaking by birth, but actually by in diplomacy, by effort, by experience, by cultivation. I mean, look at the state of the world today. I mean, so far we've been talking business, supply chains, what is the interest of the world, and the fact is, largely we are talking about the global north. Okay, I mean, we are talking about China as well, but so we are seeing today for a variety of economic, technology, and by the way, demographic reasons, because I would say one of the most underrated factor today in calculating the changes in the world is going to be the extremely sharp demographic changes we're going to see in the next decade. So, but we are talking so far of the global north. And the global north also, by the way, has an interest because, as I mentioned to you, it's not just about business. I mean, there's the issue of creating the right balances at a geopolitical level. And India that is a bigger economy, more capability. So if you take the realistic, shall I say, definition of a Lakshman, there will be countries who will see that there is a value in a relationship with India and in their calculations. But for the global south, we mean something very different. We are an exemplar, we are a motivator, we are a supporter. Pretty much everything, again, which we were speaking about earlier, your Jal Jeevan mission, your digital delivery, even the housing, the electricity, all these today are actually to differing degrees being tracked by the rest of the world. And when they see a country like India do this on scale, that if you look at the kind of numbers we are talking, we are talking 800 million, 400 million, 500 million. I mean, they know, okay, this is now tried, tested, scaled up as big as you can possibly get. And there too, there is a great desire to associate themselves with us and work with us. So I would argue today that in many ways, we have this ability. We have this ability to be relevant to the north, to be relevant to the south, to be able to bridge this east-west. And part of what you see in outcomes like G20 or other international gatherings, even you could see this at the COP28 in Dubai, that is a sense, the different facets of India and the different facets of India's progress in the last decade. I think they have a multiple constituency out there, and those are your Lakshmans in the making.
So on that account, on that score, we'll just the time's up for us, sir. And so wish you the very best and finding those Lakshmans and cultivating them and taking this forward. On that note, thank you so much for the conversation, Dr. Jaishankar.